Hey everyone, welcome to the Love Your Body podcast. On today's episode, we have Miss Amber Larkins. I'm so excited to have you. How you feeling, girl?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Feeling really good.
We're in it. We had a busy past weekend.
Yeah.
You were doing photography. For those who don't know, Amber has done some of my, I want to say like best photos
Aw.
that I've had and all my marketing and stuff. And if you have bought my recent book on Amazon, the cover photo is, and I can show it right here. So I got some copies today in the mail. So yeah, so we got the cover photo was taken by her as well as the back. And so, yeah, and both very different. You know, you look at the front, you got fitness, just rocking it out on the Stairmaster. And then the back, author picture, just on point, just very blazer. We did that over in the Airbnb and stuff. So it's like, again, showing your versatility with everything, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. So explain to them just a little bit, because I don't even know. Are you from Nashville or no?
I'm actually from Cookeville.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So now I'm back there, full circle.
Okay, I love that. So what got you into photography? I mean, we have so much we're going to talk about, but just so that they can know kind of with all your passions.
So I got into fitness, high school, I was really insecure. I was super skinny but lanky, like big boned but like skinny.
Yeah.
And the kid, some people thought it was fine to say derogatory things to skinny people.
Right.
But I really struggled with that, so I took it to heart. And my senior year, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm getting into fitness, and I'm going to get, I was always fascinated with the physique of people that built muscle. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm getting in shape.
But before that point, you didn't do sports or anything like that when you were
No.
Okay.
My mom tried to push me into sports.
Yeah.
And I was just always kind of an insecure kid, just, again, lanky and, not really, I'm like, had a hard time finding my place. Like, I'm not athletic. I'm not, I did some modeling and stuff. They got me in modeling classes when I was younger, but still that never really felt like me.
Right.
So I just had a hard time kind of figuring out who I was.
Felt like you were just very in between.
Yeah.
Or were you an only child? Or
yeah.
Okay, so only child. Okay. And I find it interesting just because I've watched my brothers and sisters raise their kids, and it's almost like, how do you choose what your child goes into? You know what I mean? When you think about it, and from what you're saying and listening to that, oh, she's slender, modeling. You know what I'm saying? Or if some people are he's more stocky, football. And it's just these stereotypes of what would be the best for the sport or whatever. And so it is very interesting that was what they were, kind of.
But I never really was attracted to that type of frame. I liked muscular. So I always wanted to be more muscular. So senior year, I took a weight training class. So embarrassing. I couldn't even bench press the bar. And every girl in there was pushing it up like nothing. And I'm like, I can't even lift that. So I just put my head to it. I was like, I'm getting in shape.
I love that.
So getting into college, and then I started competing. This was long ago, before fitness was really a thing. Fitness was very, there wasn't a lot of people did it.
Yeah. And this is, where were we in college? Where'd you go to school?
Tennessee Tech.
Okay, so Tennessee Tech. So were you still living with your parents at that time? Did you move off campus, or where were you at?
I had moved out. I was really independent. I wanted to do my own thing. And so I moved out and lived with a roommate.
Okay.
And so I got into fitness, got into met that little core group of people and got into bodybuilding and started competing.
Yeah.
And this is back when there was no bikini. It was just figure.
Oh.
And
Okay.
And figure, it's 98, 99.
Okay.
Tells my age.
And so for those that don't know, with bodybuilding, you have, there's different divisions. So, for example, I competed in the wellness, and some other guests that have been on here, Vanya is bikini. China has also done wellness. And so it's just there's just different varieties. So there's the figure, which is what I was going to do this year. So, so you said that all they had was figure at that time?
They had figure and women's bodybuilding.
Okay.
And figure had 2 rounds.
Okay.
So you did a 1-piece and a 2-piece suit.
What?
Yeah, girl. The 1-pieces were gorgeous, though.
Oh, I bet.
They were so pretty. They were an evening gown, but at the top, but then at the bottom it was all.
Yeah.
They were they didn't show your abs, but they showed everything else, and they were gorgeous. But fast forward, so college, I started putting on muscle, and then when I got out of college, I moved to California.
Okay.
And
what part?
Orange County. I was in a little place called Placentia, which is close to Anaheim.
Gotcha.
And when out there, I was, again, still trying to kind of find my way.
Yeah.
And got into some stuff out there that kind of navigated me back here. And that was mainly because I got married. I kind of got out of doing fitness, I got really burned out with doing the competing
with
anyway.
the bodybuilding. Yeah. So so you got married in California? Like you met him in California?
I met him in California.
Okay.
He was like, Tennessee is so much cheaper. He's from California. He's like, we need to move back to Tennessee. And I was like, no.
Oh, yeah. Cool, because I'm trying to imagine that, like being an only child, and like, because I went to Knoxville, so it was like kind of far away, but not really for me at the time. But I was like, it's enough of a distance. But then when I got the internship to go in Vermont, I was like, oh, okay, I'm a little bit nervous, but I was more just excited to go somewhere and do that. And I loved being up there. Like, even though there was nothing to do really there at all. But it was just like being somewhere different. You could go, explore. So I can imagine with California, because I always wanted to live in California. Obviously, you can tell by my painting in the background. Like, that was one of my favorite places. Yeah. So I love that.
California is amazing.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And for like the first time, I still struggled, like I said, with really finding my place. But I felt more at home there. Okay. Even though, like, I was always kind of a black sheep in my family. And then when I got out there, fitness was a lot more mainstream. Yeah. So now all of a sudden I have more permission to gain muscle. Yeah. And so I really loved doing it out there. And I got addicted to it. I was in a gym. There was, it was Gold's then, but then it changed to Coliseum. Okay. Milos Sarchez owned it. He was one of the Olympians, like old school. Yeah. And, so I got to meet a lot of pros. Flex Magazine did their photo shoots there.
That's sick.
They were in and out. I worked at that gym for a while. And so I was like, this is my people.
Like you were training people there? Like clients or just working?
I didn't train. I was working the front desk.
Got it. Okay,
but I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. I get to meet all these people.
So many things. You're right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it. And this was right on the brink before like fitness really exploded. Yeah. Bodybuilding.com had just come out. Yeah. Like I remember when all this happened,
I love this. Yeah.
And so, but when I met, so like I kind of went into a dark place after this because of some other stuff, which we can talk about. I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah. Because you met your husband. How old were you when you guys met?
I was 25. Okay. I was 26 when we got married.
Okay.
So, I guess I can tell you that story. Yeah. So when I was in California, I loved the fitness side. I was doing a lot of the trade shows, working in fitness. Right. But we all know, like, no matter, you have to find a certain niche to really make money, at least in that year. At that time, you had to really find a place to make money. Right. So I had danced. Okay. Worked in a strip club. Okay. For, which I just recently really started talking about this. Yeah. Because it affected me for years after this. Okay. But I did that before I moved to California. Got to California, was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Just, for a lot of reasons. It started taking an emotional toll on me. Yeah. And when I got so when I got out there, I'm like, I really wanted to immerse myself in the fitness industry. Okay. But I need money. Yeah. So I went back to dancing because I knew that I could, I could do that. So it really started, like, after years of doing this, started really taking a toll on me, getting burnout, and just honestly not wanting to live anymore. Yeah. Like I was in a really dark place. And
was it just because the environment there, it was just like kind of like gross to you? Like, or did you, what was, because like I've only been to a strip club one time. Okay. So, and I just felt like, no, this ain't it. Like I was very uncomfortable. Somebody smacked my booty, and then my friend almost like knocked him out. So like it was about to be a whole thing. Like it was just gross. You know what I mean? And I didn't really. Yeah.
Dani, I saw a lot. Yeah. The disrespect. Yeah. The what's the word I'm looking for? Where it's like you become an object.
Oh, yeah.
Not a real person.
Nobody, yeah.
And that's how men look at you. And then even outside of the club, like people that knew I did it still like objectified me. And then on top of that, There was just, I seen girls get on drugs. I seen girls despise men. I seen girls that would turn lesbian because that's what they did. They hated men because of what they had to put up with for years. The cattiness of the industry, like,
I'm sure.
And, this was before I really knew about sex trafficking, or we called it that.
Yeah.
But it was prevalent that girls would have pimps. Like, this wasn't, it was common.
Yeah.
And I just seen a really dark side of humanity.
Right.
And
this is your early 20s, right?
Yeah, I was like, I did this from when I was 19 up until I was 25.
Okay.
And I had competed. I was getting ready for the USA's, and I was dieting, and I was feeling myself getting really burnt out. And you get really lean, and so I'm on stage dancing.
Yeah.
I come off stage, and I had a customer, a guy in the club. He's like, "You're a man," and I'm like, "I'm not a man," and he's like, "I can tell you're a man."
Oh my god.
And I'm like, you just like seen my whole body. Like, I'm not a man.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're a man." And that really that was, people would say really mean things. And I've always been an empath. So I carried those things.
Right.
And so I was like, I just really, I guess that was one of the turning points.
Yeah.
And then after that, which I look back now, this was God pushing me out of that.
Yeah.
Rescuing me, really,
100%.
out of that. But all the girls in that club that I worked at turned against me.
Okay.
Our friends, people I worked there for over a year probably.
Right.
And all of a sudden.
Was it jealousy? Was it something happened? What, do you know?
I think it was God.
Okay.
I really do. I mean, all of a sudden, they just all kind of ganged up on me and was like, "Oh, you're trying to take all of our customers and this and that." And I was like, "I don't even want your customers. I don't even want to be here."
Right. I'm just working and yeah.
And around that same time, my grandmother, who I was really close with, devout Christian, she was really sick, and then she passed away. And then there was a doorman there, and he was telling me "Oh yeah, there's no such thing as God. Like, when you die, you just go to the dust. Your grandma's just going to go back to the dust." And so I started And then, without people thinking I'm too crazy, there was random stuff happening in my house. I thought I had a ghost or something in my house. I'd come home and cabinets would be open.
I don't think that's crazy. I've dealt with it. I completely get it.
It was crazy. And so I was just I honestly was at the brink of committing suicide. I was just this is horrible.
Yeah.
It's too much. I don't want to live. I'm 25 years old, which when you're 25 years old, you feel like my life is over.
Right. Yeah.
I've wasted my life.
Permanent, and yes.
Yeah. I've wasted my life doing this, and I felt guilt. I felt guilt because for years I had seen men come into the club.
Yeah.
Give me money, knowing they had families at home, knowing they had wives at home.
Yeah.
And the guilt had just piled up on me over the years to where I just blocked it out for so long I couldn't block it out anymore. And I'm just I can't live like this. And I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I'm 25. I should have a career. I have a degree.
Yeah.
And I've wasted it away.
What was your degree in?
Marketing.
Marketing. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. I just wanted to know because I couldn't remember if it was business or
Yeah.
So when your grandmother passed away, at this time, were you close with your family, or did they know what you were doing? They didn't approve. What was that like?
They knew. They didn't approve.
Okay.
But they always knew I was kind of the black sheep, so they just kind of left me alone. I mean, they didn't agree with it. My dad would tell me, "You're breaking my heart." My grandma would tell me, she never knew I don't know if she knew I danced, but she was very intuitive and very in tune with the Lord. And so she was like, "You're breaking my heart," and when she died, I guess I carried that with me as well.
I see.
But through this, I'll tell you, the night that I left the club for the last time, I went and sat in the shower. I come home, I went in the shower, and I just sat there, and the water's running over me. I just couldn't feel clean. I couldn't get clean. And for 3 days after that, I just contemplated how I was going to kill myself. And I had 2 Yorkies, these little Yorkies. And they were my kids at the time.
Right.
And all I could think about is I've really isolated myself out here.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to my family as much as I probably should. And I thought, no one's going to find my body. They're going to be here with my body for how long until somebody finds me? And I didn't
Right.
know. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah. The logistics of it.
Thank God I had those dogs because they saved my life.
Yeah.
And anyway, in those 3 days, at the end of those 3 days, I go to the gym. I'm like doing cardio and just going through the motions, right? Because it's the only thing I knew was the gym. That's the only thing that made me feel better.
It's the thing that will always be there. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't talk back to you. You
right.
show up. Yes.
That's right. So I'm in the gym working out, and then this is where I met my ex-husband.
Okay.
So he walked. Well, I knew him from the gym, but we had never really talked.
Right.
And then he just comes up, and long story short, he asked me to go out that night. I did because I knew he was a Christian, or
Okay.
I thought he was a strong Christian at the time, and so I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe he can offer me some advice because I've got to figure something
Yeah.
out.
I'm feeling super lonely. I'm isolated. I'm having these thoughts.
I just wanted advice. I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And so he, long story short, we went out that night. We kind of like, he was a big support system for me.
Okay.
It really started doing like Bible study with me, teaching me a lot about God, about the Bible, about scripture.
It's great. Yeah.
And then 8 months later, we got married.
Okay.
So he was never comfortable. Like I wasn't competing when I was with him, but when I got with him, he's like, I don't know how God feels about you being on stage. He's controlling. He was controlling. And so he manipulated a lot with scripture and like, oh, God doesn't really like you wearing makeup.
It's God, but
doesn't.
he's saying it's God, but it's him. It's his agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so he's like, God doesn't really want you on stage in that little bikini and,
Right.
and doing the trade shows where you're wearing those short booty shorts. And
Right.
I'm just like, and I was so I got saved and I so wanted to do what was right before God. So I was just like, you're right. I don't care. I'll walk. At that point, I'm like, I'm as good as, I should have been dead.
Yeah.
So at this point, I don't care to let go of anything.
Right.
So just let go of it all.
Yeah.
So quit competing. So long answer to your initial question,
Yes.
which is how did I get into photography?
Yeah.
Photography came as when I got to Tennessee, when we finally moved to Tennessee, I couldn't compete. But I
Okay.
missed the industry. I missed the fitness. I missed being around fitness people.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I really need to create something that I can be back involved in the fitness industry.
Right.
So I started doing photography as a hobby.
Okay.
And shooting fitness and
Right. I love that. So let me ask you this. So, because I want to understand. So when you met him and your job was, dancing, were you like at that 3 days, you're kind of like, I'm going to quit dancing and then you met him, or was it
No.
okay.
I had determined the last night I left the club. So I started getting physically sick, which
Okay.
again, I think was God.
Yeah.
And then for the month prior, like stuff started happening at my house. Like I'd come home and lights that I knew I had left on would be off.
Yeah.
And I would hear people like walking up the stairs to my condo, and then the doorbell would ring, and I'd open it, and there'd be no one there. Like
oh my
random
gosh,
stuff.
That's so spooky. That's so crazy.
I really believe I was like under some type of like spiritual attack.
Yeah.
And so it's like that had like led in to like and then I was getting sick when I would go into work, and I competed in July 31st was the date of
Okay.
the I think it was in 2005 at the USA's.
Okay.
And then after I competed, I started, because you can't drink going into,
Right.
But then I'm like, I'm just started going, I would drink to go into work.
Okay. Yeah.
And that lasted till like mid-August. And then I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
I see.
So I was having a breakdown.
Okay.
And when I left the club that night, there was one girl that had not been there. She's one of the ones that didn't turn against me. She's like, you just need a break. Like,
Yeah.
just go take a break. You'll be fine. I'm
Right.
like, I don't need a break. I can't do this anymore. And so where Chris came in, like I knew him from Chris, my ex-husband.
Yeah.
I knew him from the gym.
Yeah.
But where he came in the picture was right after that 3 day, like
Yeah.
literally on the third day.
Right.
I go to the gym, I'm doing cardio.
Right.
And he comes up.
So did you feel like at the time, not looking at like what you know now, obviously, but did you feel like he was almost kind of like your savior, like God kind of like brought him into your life?
Yes.
This was like, and isn't that so crazy that like you, and then they'll hear the rest of the story, obviously, in a minute, but like that you try to look for signs, right? Because you're like, oh, this is what happened, and you kind of look at the signs. You're like, it must be God that brought him in. He's a spiritual man. He's a Christian. Things like that. And I've gone through that too, where I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like, and then it's just almost like it's sad, and it gives Christians a bad rap, right? Especially men of like not even in their faith, but just Christian men, right? And that is something that when I've gotten closer with God and everything like that, like now it's more of when I try to like talk to people or ask, it's like, are you walking in faith? Like do you have the Spirit within you? Like, you know what I mean? Just saying you're a Christian doesn't mean anything to me. Like your tattoos that are a Bible verse or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, because again, it just doesn't. I need the actions,
right? Right, and someone's character.
Yes, right. Exactly. So after you guys moved back here, so did you move back to Cookeville or was it
Nashville?
Oh, it was Nashville.
We lived in Hermitage. Yeah.
Okay. And so you get married after 8 months, and then how long was it before you had kids?
5 years.
Okay. So at that time, you come back here, then you're starting to do photography, right?
So that started probably. So we got married here in Tennessee, but then I had a condo in California.
Okay.
That I needed to figure out what I was going to do with because it wasn't really sustainable for me. Like,
right,
on a dancer's salary versus like,
now
jobless. Really, I mean, like, and he was a savior. I truly believe God appointed him to come into my life at that time. I look back, and even though he and I have had some major, like, we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but one thing I can say is he
helped you in that time.
He was a savior to me in that time, and God. I feel like God says he uses all things for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And I'm like, if God had not have brought him into my life, I don't know where I would be.
Right.
So even though that ended not in the most desirable way, and even though I did struggle through some, he was controlling, and I didn't see some of this until after the divorce, and then I got healed from some of that.
Yeah.
But I look back, I just look at it a little bit different. I'm like, I don't hate him.
Yeah.
I don't like his actions always.
Right,
we have kids together.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he doesn't like my actions always.
Yeah.
But I can say this, like, I think that I just had this thought this morning actually driving into Nashville, how I don't think people, how a lot of Christians these days will paint people. It's like people are inherently bad. Like, even the Bible says none are good, no, not one. I think Paul says that. It's like, I think that comes from, like, I think people are born inherently neutral. And I think from conception, even from in the womb, like, we can experience trauma.
Right.
We can experience things that shape us. We live in a fallen world. So we're not in a perfect world.
Right.
If we were raised in a perfect world, then I don't think we would be inherently bad, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I can't say that I've given this like a ton of thought. I literally just had this thought driving in today. I'm like, I think, and I get this because of my podcast where I interview people, specialists and doctors and therapists that deal with trauma.
Right.
And I talk to people that have gone through trauma, and I'm like, these types of trauma shape people and mold people. And it affects how people see the world, really. And therefore, even the people that in my life that I can look back on and say, they did me wrong, they shouldn't have, treated me this way.
Right.
I'm like, where did they have trauma that made them do this wrong thing?
Yeah.
And then I can have empathy and compassion.
And I was going to say, that's the empath in you that can look back at that and be like, okay, where did it come from? Kind of like when somebody like runs you off the side of the road and you're like, okay, they're obviously having a bad day, but like, it's probably because, you kind of make these excuses for them or something like that versus being like, they shouldn't have done that. Like,
the world revolves around me.
Right, exactly. Yes. So I do like that perspective. I don't know how I feel about it in terms of like, because I really do feel like, I don't think that we're all like, meant to be evil or anything like that, but it's like, we do have like a sinful nature, and it's just about like the experiences that we have that have shaped us that, determines how that is portrayed, like how, the things that we do. Right.
Yeah.
And I do like that because, we did the transformation through trauma. And if you want to talk about that a little bit, like with that, because you're doing those projects, like.
Yeah, I've slowed down a little bit on those projects because it's what's crazy is that I started my podcast as like the whole idea of the podcast was like this will go with my shoots,
Right?
And I'll give people more of a platform to tell their stories, their trauma stories. But the podcast has now taken its own form, like it's grew into its own beast.
Yeah, which is awesome.
So what I've found is that I seem to get more interaction and more listenership or whatever the terminology is for that with when I interview people that are like more specialists. They also have trauma stories. And so I do encourage, I tell them like, hey, let's cover these 4 pillars.
Yeah.
Trauma story, transformational journey, triumph story, and takeaway.
Okay.
Like I want to know what your trauma was. Like what's the purpose of this episode?
Right.
I want to know what that transformation looked like because it's not overnight. I want to know what your triumph, where you're at today. Like you have to be where you're at today because if you're still in the middle of the trauma, you're probably not ready to talk about it.
Correct.
And then I want to know what you would tell someone else in your shoes.
Right.
Like going forward.
I love that.
And I feel like that covers everything. So it eliminates people that really don't need to be on there.
Right.
But it does attract a lot of people that are specialists in whatever type of trauma, whether that be different modalities of healing trauma or different types of trauma. Some people are grief coaches or specialists, so I think that it kind of helps and it gives people tactical and practical things that they can take,
which is great. I love that. And what we had done was, because that was your first one, right? Was I, or one of your first?
You were like my second, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it was really special, and it gave me a safe space to kind of be. And I look back on those photos with a very, not even emotional, that's not the right word, but like kind lens, of what I was going through at that time. And I wanted it to be, because I wanted to just be real and authentic in those moments, but I couldn't. I had exterior voices telling me, no, this is not good for your brand. This is not good for people to see. This is like, whatever. And I was like, I just want to be authentic. I want to be real about it. And like, but it was somebody else's story that like I couldn't be super open about, you know what I mean? In respect to them. But then, so it was very hard for me. And like, that's another thing too, with like not having a lot of relationships before, of like trying to navigate and understand like, how do I express this when someone else, because I'll say all the stuff about me all day long,
right?
But when it's someone else's stuff, it's like, how do I say it? So you made it very safe for me to be able to say with those photos what was going on.
Yeah. What's artistically done. It's not like you're not saying cutting things.
Yes.
I mean, even on the podcast, I have to be careful when I tell people, they'll ask me, if they come on with parental or childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't want to like throw my parents under the bus.
Right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching and following along with the Love Your Body podcast. Whether you've subscribed on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify, I just appreciate all of you. If you get a chance to check out my new book on Amazon, it's How to Love Your Body Throughout. It's a short read, you guys, but there's so much packed in it. And just, it's going to help you more than you know. So if you get a chance, please check that out, as well as you can get some Fight Energy at DanityFitness.com under the gear section. Again, it is a product that I'm so proud of. We got blueberry pomegranate and strawberry splash as well. And we're in Fight for What You Want season. So if you're interested in doing a challenge, or if you're interested in, having a consult, coming in person to train, whatever it might be, I would love to help you on your walk to loving yourself more throughout your journey.
I run Empowerography Files. I started in fitness photography, still shoot a ton of fitness influencers, fitness businesses. I do also shoot other businesses as well. And so we shoot all the different things that has to do business and entrepreneurship and fitness. So if you are looking for content for your business or just for your personal brand, then feel free to reach out. You can find me on Instagram at Empowerography Files, and you can follow me along on YouTube, although on YouTube it's mainly my podcast, which is Through the Trauma Podcast. That's mainly my YouTube, and then also you can find that on any of the platforms as well. And I just thank you so much.
I feel like more people need to know real stories. You know what I mean? And need to hear that real experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this, I mean, and we were talking before we got on the mics and stuff, just about bodybuilding and how it is such a love-hate relationship, because it's like, you know, with everything that you've gone through and then what I've been experiencing and stuff and what we've seen, it's it's easy to put it like a bad taste in your mouth. You know what I mean? And like what you're talking about with even talking about like your ex-husband and stuff like that, it's like you want to tread carefully with things because you don't ever want to throw anybody at the bus. You want to go around your own experience. But it's like when your own experience is so heavy, it's like, how do you not come off like kind of bitter or sad, or you know what I mean? And like, and that's the thing with the bodybuilding. It's like, I want people to know that I genuinely, like, I don't know what the future holds, but I had such a traumatic experience with it. And I don't know. I hate watching also now on the outside of it, my friends that are just sick. You know what I mean? Mentally.
You mean from the competing?
Yes. Like mentally and how they view things, themselves, all of it. You know what I mean? And it's just so glorified now. And you probably watched it. So since seeing it from like, you know, 99 when you were like getting into fitness and like to now, like what are some of your like takeaways that you've seen from this sport that like has kind of affected you? Like when it comes to, you know, even the past like show that we just were at.
Okay, I'm going to get some hate for this.
Yeah.
But I really don't like how it's become overly sexualized.
Yeah.
And I feel like it has. And I'm not even talking about necessarily the shows, like being on stage.
Yeah.
I'm talking about everything that goes into that.
Right.
So I started to see a real problem when I got into doing photography and I was shooting fitness.
Right.
I was faced with this problem of like, I don't want to shoot anything that's too overly sexualized.
Yeah.
And I had some really good, like, I had clients that would kind of challenge. I say challenge, but like I had one girl and she's like, I don't want to do anything that really shows my body. She wanted to just show shape. So she wanted long sleeves and pants, and that was her brand.
Yeah.
And I really thought long and hard about what I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
And like even when I met you, like I loved that. And we met through the transformation through trauma photo shoot that we did.
Yeah.
And but I was like, I love that like going against the grain kind of thing. And I love the whole, like there's so many people doing things for likes and follows and attention. And I'm like, I don't care if I get a big following or not.
Right.
I'm not going to exploit my clients.
Yeah.
And my background, my past, I'm like, I never want to make a woman feel like I'm exploiting her or I'm posting something of her that is like a little bit too much cleavage or too much, you know, booty shot. And I get women that sometimes will want me. And I'm like, you know what? I'll photograph that for you, but I'm not posting.
Yeah.
That will not go anywhere on my social media.
Right.
Because I don't want people following me for that.
Yes.
And I will not exploit another human being.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that.
Right. No, and I love that. And I get it so deeply because it's just like some of the things, I mean, I don't know. I get it because when you're in it, you don't see it. Right. Like when you're in, I mean, I think that's like borderline some of the trauma with like the shows and the preps and stuff like that. Like you can't see it very clearly. And so you think, okay, I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. I'm showcasing this or I'm doing whatever. And it just became like a symbol, you know, and like a status or whatever. And I don't know, like with the whole, like, would God approve of like being on stage and stuff like that or whatever? I think that, again, when you're doing it with the lens of, I worked really hard for and it's just a body. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's just a body.
Right.
And we put so much emphasis on this body and on this stuff and whatever. It's like, you know, the body, you're meant to respect your temple. You know what I mean? And whether that be, you know, with eating healthy, fueling it, the things you are intaking, you know, what you're watching, the music you're listening to, all of the stuff, right? And so it's like one of those things where, like, when I went out on stage, or even with strongman or did whatever, it wasn't for anybody else, and it was just for me. And I was able to be like, I worked really hard for this, and I didn't care if I didn't have enough. Like I know that there was talk, like people would say like, you need to be leaner, I was like, this is as lean as I can get. Like for like in this season of life, okay?
Right.
Because and again, it was so extreme. It was so intense. I ate the same meal every day for years, you guys. Like, and it's like there was no off switch, and that like ran my health into like the ground. But thankfully, it's not so detrimental where I don't feel like I can come back from it. But even with the eye stuff that I deal with, like it's just an autoimmune disorder now. It's like no one ever told me that would be a thing, And it's almost like with strongman, I was kind of like in the back of the mind, like I can get injured, and I probably will at some point, right? But with bodybuilding, I didn't think, I could end up having autoimmune disorder, or I could end up having these hormone issues, or none of that. And it wasn't talked about. When I started talking about my eye, there were girls that came up, like messaged me, hey, I had the same coach that you did. I was in bed rest. I had this happen. Now I won't be able to have kids. And I'm like, no one want to be talking about this? Y'all so stuck on borough drama that doesn't matter, and who's cheating on whoever and who's doing this, whatever. And I'm like, this is the stuff you should be talking about. Yeah. But nobody wants to say it. Like, and like, I don't know.
I think the hard thing with fitness is it's like I'm going to compare this to food, even though it's like people be like, oh yeah, of course you're going to compare it to food. But like the thing is this, you have to have food. You have to eat.
Yeah.
Like to stay alive.
Right.
Like you have to have that.
Yes.
So if you have to have that food, then you need to have a healthy relationship with food, but it's so easy to get a toxic relationship with food. And I feel like fitness is very similar. Like it's like you need to exercise.
Right.
And when you do exercise, I've taken so many nuggets from the fitness industry, like how to be disciplined, how to have a strong mindset, how to diet, what is nutritious, how to say no to certain things and say yes to certain things, how to control my drinking,
how to love your body throughout. Like,
all of those things, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, so those are all good things. But then there's like this toxic side too.
Yeah.
And even with the sexuality, it's like if I'm going to get my body in that shape, I want to be able to like wear what I want and I want to be empowered doing so.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that. But then there's like this fine line of like, okay, now I'm just doing it for self-worth kind of a thing.
It comes to intentionality.
Yeah.
And that's what my pastor was talking about the other day. And it really is like, if you're just going to church so you can like mark it off the list, then don't go. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, and he's very blunt about it. And it's the same thing of, if you're just training with me because you think I'm like an influencer or this or that, whatever, it's like, that's not the right motive. You know what I mean? I've had that happen or, whatever it is. But so it's the intentionality behind it. And so that was like why I always try to say on stage, people were like, well, how are you so positive? And how are you okay with like coming in last or like whatever? And I was like, bro, like this was for me and I did it. And like my intentionality was that like, I can do hard things and I am incredible. And I consider myself an athlete, and like that is, and that was so huge to me. So it was like, regardless of what others thought. And I think that again, now the intentionality is that these women, especially, and even the men, they're looking at it of like, oh, well, who's watching? Who's seeing it? Like, oh, did she approve? Is this going to get me this? Or is this, whatever. And it's just like the intentionality is messed up with all of it.
Yeah.
And when you said that about the over exercising, right? Like, I think that's called something like, I don't know if it's, I forget the language or whatever, but like it's actual terminology. But were you doing like 2-a-days? Was it like that you were just like hours in the gym? Like, what was that like?
Girl, when I was getting ready for the USAs, I had a trainer. He trained under Charles Glass. So he took a lot of Charles Glass's like workouts, which are like intense. And I'm in my 20s. So it's like, who cares? I don't know if I'm going to break my joints. I don't care. I'm 20. I'll heal from it. You feel invincible. And I started training super hard. And I got in the best shape.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really taking anything other than like protein supplements.
Right.
And people were like, what are you taking? I'm like, I'm not taking anything right now. Like just protein supplements. And that's it. But it was intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going into that show, I was doing like 2 hours of cardio. Mm-hmm. And now that I think about it, I don't think I was training with him. I trained with him that year, that season, but I actually think I was training with Kim Odo when I went into the USAs.
So if somebody's listening, they're probably going to say, like in their mind, they're going to say, like with bodybuilding, well, that's what you have to do. You know what I mean? Like that over type of training, the extreme, because it's an extreme sport. And I want people to understand that. I think that a lot of even my clients think that bodybuilding is just something people like in the fitness industry can do. Mm-hmm. No, people weren't really doing bodybuilding like they're doing it now. You know what I mean? Like now it is like trendy to do it.
Oh yeah. And
really like I didn't even know that it was so trendy when I genuinely got into it, because literally my love, my passion had been like in my mind stripped away from me. Like strongman was taken from me. So then West was taken from me. Right. Yeah. So I kind of had this mindset of like everything is being stripped away. So like, what do I go do? You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, bodybuilders lift less weight than what I was lifting. And maybe I can get the food thing down. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so that was the only reason I got with that coach. And because he was good with the food, whatever. And then, which then got me into a toxic mentality of, like, I don't know if you were ever told this, but like I've been told multiple times from multiple coaches throughout my entire life that I am the exception, and not in a good way. Like that I have to work harder than everybody else, that my body will not, change unless I go to extremes with certain things. Like some people just can't do it. Some people, like for example, like some people just can't eat out. So I didn't eat out for a couple years. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just kind of like, and that is absurd. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can't achieve the goals that you want to achieve it by doing this unless you eat the same thing every single day. And it's so, and I'm just so over it. And like now just changed. And this is why I wanted to talk to you at the National Fit Show. And thank you for coming up to the booth, because it meant so much, because I just needed a hug. Because the day before I didn't know how I was going to feel. I had so much emotions with not doing the show. I had so much emotions about not being in a bodybuilding prep and like quote unquote giving that up. Right. But doing it for my health and doing it for the right intention. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like working with a hormone specialist. And so that is how I'm going to do food. So I just went to the grocery store and bought foods I haven't bought in years. I'm talking like 7 years, maybe 10 years. Okay. Like right now, my whole fridge is filled with foods that I haven't eaten. I'm so excited. Like I had a kiwi this morning. Like a kiwi. You know what I mean? Like I had a banana yesterday. I almost cried. Like how ridiculous is that? And like I help people with food, like, but I've always been like, I've disassociated, because like I've been like, I can help you because you have all the options in the world, and you're not me. Like, and I have to be different because of what I've been told my whole life.
Yep.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost been like a manipulative tactic.
Yep.
And that's why I never wanted to do that to my people. So I've always been like, no, like here, let's clean up like this. And like in a very realistic approach. And I'm like, yeah, you can have this, you can do this. Like, you know what I mean? And I just never got that same respect. And now that I'm working with a female, I don't know if that'll be better or how it'll go. And I'm going to give my all to it and whatever. But I'm excited, and it's overwhelming, but I'm excited. But again, it's just, I think that so many times, now circling it back, that with these girls that are in bodybuilding, these guys, that their value is only within that show. Mm-hmm. If they get first, and if they don't, crashing down. And I know you've seen that too.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen it.
Yeah,
I've experienced it.
Yeah,
I experienced it. I mean, I really believe that. I think it was 2004. Mm-hmm. I competed in. Here I am from Tennessee. I'm a Tennessee girl. Come out to California.
Yeah.
And won my class in the California State Club show. So I was like, I was in such disbelief, Dani. Like I honestly was like, I did not win this show. They put me dead center. I was like, I didn't win this show.
Yeah.
I left and went and had a Diet Coke. I was going to have one drink, but then I ended up having like the whole Diet Coke because I couldn't stop. And I'm like, I don't care. I didn't win. And like, I dieted so hard.
Yeah.
That I just wanted that Diet Coke.
Right. Yeah.
So I had the Diet Coke. I come back at the night show. My coach is like, what the hell what did you do in between morning and night show? I'm like, I had a Diet Coke. And he's like, Amber, you're going to go up overall. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a Tennessee girl. Like, there's no way they're going to give me the California like title. And he's like, you won this show. Yeah. Sure enough, won the show. Could have got my pro card at that show.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think I would have won overall anyway. There was some amazing looking women in that show.
And you were one of them.
It's funny because the next year, very next year, I come back. That was the year that this is when it really started taking a toll on me. I come back and I did like a small show and placed like 9th or I think it was like 11th. I don't even think I placed in the top 10. Okay. I don't remember. I tried to block it out of my memory.
Yeah, I got you.
But I was like, how did I do so well that year? And then this year come back and then all of a sudden it all comes crashing down. You're like, my body looks like crap. I look like crap. I've lost everything. Yeah. Like it's the self-talk.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's a love-hate relationship, like you said, with the sport. You love it because I took a lot of great things from bodybuilding. And I've met some of the most amazing people.
Yeah.
Like I go back in my memory of like all the people I've met in this industry. Right. And I have pretty much all my friends has been in this industry at some point.
Right.
And it's like some of the best people in the world. And it is like even being like at the Nashville Fit Show the other night, it was like, there's such an energy and you don't get that. Right. I've never been in another place where you get that.
Yeah.
Maybe in the gym, once you get like grounded in a gym and you get really connected there, then I feel that sometimes, but you just don't feel that. It's a different kind of camaraderie. So I love that part of the sport.
Yeah.
But I hate that it's like, it's a judgment on appearance, which we already struggle with that so much as in the culture that we live in nowadays.
Right. And that's the thing too, is like, it was so cool because, I go to the show and just a quick recap, like the day before, I'm talking bad. Like I'm talking your girl went to like some bad old habits and just was stressed out and flipped out just with everything, trying to make the decision about how do I leave my current coach or my previous coach. And this is not the beginning coach. This is the one I've used the past year and he's great and we're friends and we're still cool. Oh, that's great. But anyway, he was like, cause I need you to work with somebody that knows more about hormones and stuff like that. And I was like, awesome. So anyway, but I was just like kind of in stress of like, and this could be a huge money commitment. This is going to be a lot, like, cause this is not just like a bodybuilding coach anymore. This is like a different type of thing. And so I was like, you know what, you've tried like all these things. Why not just try something different? But to get to that rationale, I'm like, well, and you're not going to be on the show and you're going to be up 27 pounds more than what you were in that, when you were there last in that moment, which again, it's not about the number, but it was just about how I was feeling and I wasn't feeling that great about it, and I was just like, I just feel kind of lost, and I end up, when I got there, I was like, change the mindset. I got some sleep, which sleep helps everything, you guys, just get some sleep, and I woke up the next morning and I get there, my new banner that you took the photo of, me, Katie, Amanda, and Wendy. And I'm like, that looks beautiful. And then my other new banner with me and Amanda, and you got to understand too, I used to be so particular that like, I would have been so upset because it was a little pixelated because of like how they printed it, I would have been furious. I was like, I'm just happy to be here. Like, I'm so happy. I'm like letting go of like old tendencies and old habits and whatever. And this mindset of perfection, I'm like, my booth looks great. You know what? I have option for people to order the book on Amazon. I got this, I got that, whatever. And anyway, but I didn't know how I was going to feel. So when you came by, gave me a hug, that helped me kind of stay grounded, right? And I was just like, let's just have fun, And throughout the entire day, I had gems and nuggets of people who came up to me and was like, hey, I know you don't know me, but I just want to let you know that you are the reason that I'm able to love my body. And I was like, can I give you a hug? Like, what's up? That's the first time we're meeting. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like someone saw me like from the bathroom. Someone was like over here, but that happened throughout the whole day. This girl who won her class and did amazing, she came up to me and said, hey, Dani, I don't think you remember me. I had platinum blonde hair last time, whatever. 2 years ago, you and your friend China helped me. My coaches left me hanging high and dry. I had no one. Y'all were there for me. I don't even remember this. Like, I don't remember doing this for her. She was like, you were there giving like positive affirmations. Can I please just give you a hug? And I was like, yeah, like, this is fantastic. I didn't, so it was just, it continually, God showed me moments throughout the day to support me and cloak me. And even how the booths were set up, I couldn't see the stage. I only went up to the stage to see the girls compete when I had my one friend up there. And like, And I just like videoed her real quick and then came back. You know what I mean? I had no moments of like, oh, I wish I was like out there. Cause like when I would go to Strongman Nationals when I was injured, I literally looked at the stage and was like, I wished I could have been lifting, you know, and I was very sad. But this, I was like, I'm good right now. We're having meetings, we're talking shop, you know, hanging out with you. You know, it was just like, and people were saying these things. And it was not about, oh, Dani, you just look, some people gave me compliments, obviously, on how I looked. And they're like, man, you look so fit. Like, are you going to compete, you know, soon, whatever. And that was great. But it wasn't about that. It was what I told you those first comments were about them changing their life through seeing the message or seeing the positivity or whatever. And that was like, man, I had a horrible night yesterday. Like my lowest I had been in forever. And then somebody saying that, I was just like, yeah, it just helped me with that whole day. And I didn't feel any type of missing out or anything. And I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And God completely made that happen.
This is the beauty, I feel like, of fellowship, like with other people, just in general. Christians, non-Christians, doesn't matter. Just that, you know, you inspire many people, and then you give a lot of your energy into inspiring people and to building this brand that empowers women, inspires women, makes them love themselves, makes them love their body. This is what you do, and it's a lot of giving of your energy. And the beautiful thing is, like, when you struggle, it's like people still think like, oh, Dani, you know, she's still this, they don't really know.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is that they just felt compelled to come up and share with you like, hey, this, and it fed your spirit.
100%.
And it's just so beautiful.
And it literally, like, and again, I want to people to understand this. It had nothing to do with how I looked that day. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there were comments that were positive about that, but that was not it. You know what I mean? And like, I was just, that is what fed me. And it's always been like that for me. Like, you know, yes, it's nice to hear sometimes we're like, oh, like your shoulders looking good or backside's looking good, whatever. But I can hype my own self up on those things for the most part, you know? This was more of like, what you're doing matters. Thank you. And I was like, bruh. And then even this older lady, she was like, oh, wait, you're Dani. She's like, you probably have so many people come up to you today, but I just want to tell you, I follow you on socials and I don't know her, you know, but she was like, hey, you're just crushing it. And like, saw that you got a new book, you know, I was like, thanks. Like, you know, and that was so cool. So that's my whole thing is that like, cause sometimes, and we've talked about this with like the engagement stuff on socials. It's horrible right now. Don't know the drill, whether if I have a social media person, if I don't, it just sucks. And like, it's like almost like no one's viewing it, no one's watching it, no one cares. But my whole thing is it like, I've said this a million times, but it sometimes will kind of get to me. But even when I was starting out, nobody watched anything then, but I've continued to keep doing it. So I'll continue to keep doing it. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to let that deter me or like try to do, you know, all the things or whatever. I'm just going to put out what feels good, what feels genuine, what feels real, because that's my outlet.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Social media is a whole new beast nowadays. But, you know, I just go back to this whole thing of like, if you're impacting one, like I heard someone say, if you have 100 followers, that's 100 people that sees your stuff. Maybe probably not the whole 100, but like you have a small group of people that see your stuff. But you can impact those people.
Yeah.
And like I've heard people, you know, people come to me and say stuff, and it makes your entire day, especially if you've already been like having a bad day or you're doubting, like, should I even be doing this?
Right.
I'm giving so much time, energy, attention to this thing, sometimes even money. Like I'm investing money into this thing, and for what?
Right.
To make myself exhausted.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then randomly you'll get a message. It's like, hey, you're so inspiring. Like this one episode of your podcast, or this one thing that you said, or this one post.
Right.
And I'm just like,
it changes everything.
Yeah.
And that is exactly right. And so that was, like I said, there was a reason I was supposed to be there, you know? And so, which was great. And I'm glad that, you know, again, had friends there and I could see and like meet some new people and everything like that. So it did go over really well, and I really enjoyed it. But so I want to talk about when you know, got back here and, you know, you've been married for a little bit. Were you like, you know, when you started doing your photography, like, what was it that when you started noticing kind of the downfall of the marriage? Like, what had happened? Was there a catalyst, or was it just slowly over time?
Looking back, I mean, I can definitely point to times that I felt like changed things. I think things changed after we started having kids, like after I had my son. But then things really began to change after I had my second, which was my daughter.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was I couldn't devote as much time and attention into the marriage, and I was very much like I was never pictured myself as like a mom figure. But all of a sudden now I'm just like head over heels over these little people.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want to leave them with babysitters. Like and I look back, I can honestly say like I've reflected. I've been single the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And I can look back and I've taken time to really meditate and think about this. Where did I really go wrong? Like what did I do in the marriage that contributed? Obviously he did some wrong things.
Yeah.
I can't change or control what he did.
Right.
I can only change and control what I do so
Yeah.
that hopefully if God ever says, hey, here's someone to get married to again.
Yeah, you learn from and like, yeah.
Right. So, there was things like I didn't give a lot of effort into like date nights and all the things that go into a really healthy marriage. I'm like, no, I don't want to leave my kids. I don't want to, and I was a homebody and he liked to go out and stuff. So, but over time, I'd say like about a year after my daughter was born, things started really getting not good.
Okay.
And then he started hiding things from me.
Okay.
Like things to do with finances, things to do with his job, like things to do with even like communication with family members and things like that. There was a lot like that just wasn't transparent, and it had always been transparent to that point. And I'm just like, I think something's going on. And then, that was I think she was a year old around that time when I really started to see. And then about 2 years after that, the next 2 years after that was, it was kind of like hell. I'm not gonna lie. And it was not good. Things were not really good between us. And I just remember asking God, like, is things always going to be this way?
Yeah.
Like, I kept thinking God would change him back to the person that I fell in love with, to the person that I thought he was.
Yeah.
And it just continued to get worse.
Right.
And then he had an affair. And when I found out about the affair, it was almost like I felt like God was just like, now you're not, you don't have to be here anymore. Yeah. Like I've given you a way out. I honestly look back and I think God probably tried to like, hey, nudge him to, but I just don't think, I think at that point he had already just said, I'm done. And so.
I see. So, and when was that? What year was that y'all got divorced?
2018.
Okay. So fairly, so about 6 years you said, okay. So when in that time, what is something like the main thing that you've learned about yourself? Like, does it have to do with, things that you saw from that and now you've actively been working on? Is it something that like you've maybe had even as a child and now you're like, okay, this is a characteristic that I want to work on? Like what has that been like?
So that's a big question. I would say that, okay, so real quick, I'll just tell you this. Coming out of that, so like he never really wanted me to work. He wanted me to be a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
I wanted to work. I had a big purpose. I didn't know what that was yet.
Right. Yeah.
But I felt the unsettling nudge of God, like you have something bigger that you have to contribute.
Yeah.
And I started to feel that shift. And I wanted to do something, So I channeled this into my photography, again, going back to like, I want to be sure that I want to be different. I want to shoot women that admires their physique,
right,
but it doesn't exploit them.
Yes, 100%.
So go to that. And then I think that I think that the biggest thing is when we got divorced, I'm like, now what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And so Whitney, who owns Nashville Fit Show, I knew Whitney from the gym.
Okay.
And I was just reflecting on this the other day. Like, I'm so grateful for her because I went to her and I messaged her and I'm like, hey girl, like I knew her from the gym, but I didn't really know her real well.
Right.
And I'm like, can we do coffee? I think maybe we had shot together once. And she's like, yeah. So she meets me at Starbucks and I'm like, so I'm getting a divorce and I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do for money.
Right.
I need to be plugged into as many fitness things as possible. Can you help me?
Right.
And she's like, yeah. And so she just started plugging me into all these fitness things.
Right.
And then me and her become friends. And then COVID happened and then we become really good friends. And
Yeah.
so it's, again, another friendship through the fitness industry. But I would say the number one thing, like going back to your question and being specific, is that I really got into entrepreneurship. And I was determined. There was a time, maybe 3 months after we had split up.
Yeah.
I'm driving down the road and I'm taking my kids to school. My little boy, he's like, at the time, I think he was like 6 or 7. And he's like, I'm like, guys, I know I'm working a lot. I'm trying to like figure out what we're going to do, but like, it won't always be this way. And he's like, whatever, Mom, you're never going to make money like Dad does. And when he said that, I was like,
Yeah.
I'll do it or die trying.
Yeah, for sure.
You will not tell me I can't.
Right.
And so that projected me on this journey of entrepreneurship, which you're an entrepreneur.
Yep.
It is not a straight path.
No.
And you have to be resilient and you have to have thick skin and you have to have all these things because it's not easy. I honestly think, now, different people, it's different. I get it. But for me, fitness was like a breeze compared to entrepreneurship.
Right.
Like, fitness, that mindset prepared me for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
But it has set me on the trajectory of self-growth like I've never experienced it.
Yeah.
And it's been hard. It's been challenging. I work a lot.
Yeah.
But it's also been so rewarding.
That's
because
awesome.
I've become a new person.
Yeah.
And it's put my back against the wall, made me force myself to become a different person and to grow in all these areas.
Right.
Reflect, I'm going to business conferences. I'm listening to people like, what's this millionaire mindset? What is that? Like, I can't be a victim anymore.
Yeah.
I can't blame him or blame someone else. Like, it just sets you on a trajectory of self-growth. And honestly, I had an appointment this morning. I was telling the lady there, I'm like, I'm in my 40s. This is the best time of my life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm too old. I'm too young at this point to get like sick and like have my joints hurting and stuff. Like, I've got to be at my best health because everything else is at its best.
Yes.
Like, I'm happier than I've ever been. Like,
Good.
I've got my kids are healthy. My life is good, and I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome.
But I also with age and hormones, and it's like now you're dealing with like not being able to lose as much weight as you once could, and I'm really struggling with like hair loss and struggling with just joints hurting and years of working out will do that to you, and then just hormonal issues, I think, premenopausal probably. So
well, tell me about that. So with the hormones and stuff, like, did they say some things off? Like they say
I got my blood work done on Friday, so I haven't got the results back.
Okay.
I did a whole weight loss panel because they test for a lot of things that I think was relevant to me because I've been in fitness for so long that I needed to get my thyroid tested. I needed to figure out what my adrenals are doing because I'm sure my adrenals are shot.
Right.
I mean, I am an energy drink junkie.
I didn't hear that. I was like, there's something on my fight energy. Thank you. What you do? You drink the strawberry, right? That's your.
I do. I drink it all, girl. I drink that and Ghost and Bang and all the things. And
I mean, you'll be surprised too. Like, and this is why I try to tell everyone now. Like, it's not about going and just getting your hormones checked and like just to like cross off the list. Like, actually, like, get it done and then like take it to a specialist or take it or like do some research or whatever to look and be like, okay, you're within the normal ranges, but is that actually normal? You know what I mean? Because that's the thing is like, even when I was like really not feeling well, everything came back normal. You know what I mean? Like in the beginning. And it wasn't until I felt it, I kind of crashed and was like, I knew exactly when it happened that it was like autoimmune disorder is present. Like it was like one day I didn't have it.
Yeah.
The next it was right there. But I knew like the trajectory of just going down, and I just let it ride, and we just let it blow up at the bottom. And anyway, all that to say that it was like, I just had people around who didn't really, like with that coach, like didn't support, like it was just like, oh, this is just hard, you know, and those type of comments and stuff. And kind of like what you did. It's like that, well, I'll show you what's hard. I can do anything, you know. But really it was like I knew my body. So I try to tell my girls, like, trust in your body, really. And like feeling it of like, do you feel bad? Do you feel good? Do you feel whatever, lethargic all the time? Like, what's going on? But then also like, go get the blood work done, ask more questions. And if that person couldn't answer for you, then go to someone else, you know, like find it. Like it's a never ending journey. And it sucks because being a female in the, you know, healthcare and all the stuff, right? Because I've been to how many people now and they still can't tell me why I don't have a cycle. You know, and the men that I've talked to, they're like, well, you're not lean enough to like not have one. And it's like, that's not the point. That's not the point. You know what I mean? You could be obese and not have a cycle. It's like, again, our bodies are different.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? So something's off. So my thyroid is low. And so they're like, okay, we need to put you on synthetic, whatever stuff. And I was like, absolutely not. And this was another reason why I had such that bad day. Because the doctor, as soon as I walked in, or no, I was sitting there. As soon as she walked in, she didn't even look at me. She was looking at a chart because, you know, they just had weighed me and whatever. Looking at a chart, she goes, and then she goes, as she looks up, she goes, so I hear that you're coming into, because you can't lose weight. And I was like, no, ma'am, I'm not having that issue. I haven't had a cycle, you know. And so she was like, oh, well, your thyroid's down, da, da, da. And I was like, so is that why I'm not having a cycle? She's like, oh, we don't know. And I'm like, so like, and she wanted to put me on these drugs. I'm like, okay, what? And it was low. It wasn't even that it was like super, like to the bottom of whatever, you know, yet.
Yeah.
So she treated it like this is your only way out, da-da-da-da-da. And I was just like, ma'am, if I was somebody that was in the fitness world, and just like I would have listened to your advice, and it was just very disheartening. You know what I'm saying? Because I worked so hard for this body. You know, I was sitting there. I mean, I had like my cute little like black tank on, you know, and like feeling jacked, and like had my shorts on, whatever. And then she's like, "So I hear you're having trouble losing weight." I was like, and then she looks at me. I'm like, I wanted to be like, "Do I look like I have problems losing weight?" Like, you know, like. But again, I was just like, "Don't have resentment. Don't snap back." So I kept her the full hour. You know, because I knew I was going to get charged for this session still, you know, even though she's just going to push this narrative on me. And like, again, just older Southern lady, whatever, it's fine. But at the end of the day, I was just like, I know my body, we're going to find a different way to do it. You know, like I refuse at this point in time. And again, I'll try this, see what happens. Right. But it's the things of like, it's hard. It only gets harder as we get older. But I don't think this narrative of like, oh, well, you're 31 now. And I was like, ma'am, hush. Like, you know what I mean? Like, stop treating it like, oh, you would have thought she was talking to me like I was 70 years old. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, stop the nonsense. Like, I feel like your age is defined by how you feel.
That's right.
So I'm trying to feel better.
Yeah.
So like, help me or like get out of the way, kind of. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I don't understand. It's like people think they have this permission to just speak things over you. It's like, you know, and I think that because you can't control what people say over you, it's like you have to have this like bulletproof persona that kind of like lets it repel from you.
Yes.
But it's just like, really?
Well, at that point, that was like the stick that like broke. Like, you know what I mean? Like the match that broke or whatever. It was because I was like, this is my life. This has been my life since you know what I mean? Since I was 14 or whatever, when I put on the weight from whatever. And it's always that narrative. And it's like, you know, and then as she talks to me, it's not proving myself, but she's like, oh, you're a fitness instructor. Oh, you do this. Oh. And it's like, imagine how everyone else feels. And it's almost like I took on every one of my clients or anyone I've ever worked with feelings in that moment. And it just made me so sad. You know what I mean? And it was like, now you're not even viewing my body. You're just viewing the weight number, you know? And it was just so like that. And I felt deeply for everyone and everybody. And again, you know, it's not about you guys. if you're a larger body, you have people who have smaller bodies, and like and what you've talked about with the issues of loving yourself. And like we've talked about that several times. And somebody on the outside would look at you when you were younger and say, oh, well, you're slender or you're this, whatever. And you're like, oh, I just want to be like muscular. Like I want to feel like,
Right.
sexy and good in my body, whatever that looks like. And so, yeah, so I think the only way that we can change this is by setting the example.
Yeah.
Of being truly confident with where we're at, understanding and being our healthiest. And so, yeah, within your time within like, with bodybuilding, all the things now, do you feel like you've had this time of 6 years to be able to be like, okay, I'm working on myself. So like now you have kind of a good regimen with I see you getting your workouts in, with your food and things like that. Do you feel like your relationship is good, or do you feel like you have still struggling in those areas from like previous trauma with all of it?
Not with my physique. Like I posted something not so long ago and I was like, losing weight in your 40s. I used it more as a hook. I mean, it was like, read this, because it really dives into like a whole lot more than just like losing weight. I did feel bloated. Yeah. I did.
Yeah.
But I don't beat myself up over my weight. Obviously I want to stay within a certain range.
You have a range, yes.
But, and if I see that starting to go too far to the right or left, if I lose too much muscle, I'm like, I need to get in there and go hard.
Yeah.
Or if I gain too much weight, I gain too much fat, I'm like, I need to get back in there. So there's definitely that. But I don't beat myself up. Like, I had a cheat meal Friday with my kids. They talked me into it. They're like, come on, Mom. Like, we're going to watch a movie. We'll have a cheat meal.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, life is worth living. So I'm going to have a cheat meal. And then we were at the Nashville Fit Show, and Heidi's there with those alpha cookies.
I know, the alpha cookies are so good. I wish they would let me sponsor me like, at this point. They actually really do. They sponsor like all my events and stuff. They're so good. They're so good.
I know. If I buy these cookies, they're going to get eaten, but I couldn't resist because she's in Murfreesboro. I'm in Cookeville.
I know. We get them when we can too. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, and oh my God, they've gotten so much even better than what I had even remembered.
Right.
And I'm like, I couldn't stop. I had one bite that night when I got home, and I'm so glad I had a clean diet all day.
Yes.
Because I ate a whole cookie.
Yeah.
They were just so good. But anyway, I digress. I feel like I'm pretty good with that. Do I struggle in other areas? Yes. I would say that I really struggle with beating myself up with entrepreneurship.
Right.
With I'm an empath, and sometimes, I do photography. I love doing it. It's still a hobby for me. Even though I do it for money, it's still a hobby.
For sure.
So I really struggle with taking money.
Yeah. And we've talked about that before. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I really struggle with even charging people.
Yeah.
But, I do, there's different, and then you'll feel like when business is doing really well, it's like I'm on top of the world. Yep. So it's a different industry, different thing, but it's that same mindset. Because when business is doing bad, I'm like, I suck.
Right.
I'm horrible at this. Like, I'm never going to be, I'm never going to get where I want to go. I'm always going to struggle. Because every time I get, like, I'm able to invest in something else for the business, I invest in it, and then I'm back to broke. I'm like, oh my gosh. But, at the end of the day, like that's definitely something that I'm back and forth with.
Yeah. The highs and the lows. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's the same mentality. It's the same mindset. And I don't, it's a daily challenge, it's a growth thing. Your mind is like a muscle. The more you work it, and the more you self-talk, and the more you catch yourself talking negative.
Well, and that's why I try to talk about, and I've even mentioned in my book and stuff, that it's like, at the end of the day, it is an active choice to love yourself. You know what I mean? To love your body. And it may become a little bit more natural, just like going to the gym, maybe when you get in a routine. It may become a little more natural, but that's what it all boils down to for me, is like it has to be a regimen and routine. And once it is, then it becomes more second nature, but it still is a choice. And I think that some people think, oh, well, I've been doing this for forever. Why isn't this happening? Or why can't I love myself or whatever? It's like, but you have to still actively choose to. Just because you showed up in the crop top doesn't mean you're going to love it. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
You got to like say it to yourself. You got to own it. You got to whatever. And like, and that's the thing is it's so much more than just the bare minimum. And like what you're talking about of how, with it's harder as you get older to lose weight or this or menopause or premenopause or whatever. It again, just it's yes, it does, but if you have those routines and you have those things in place, it's gonna make it so much easier. But it's like it's a lot to be expected of you to take care of yourself, truly. You know what I mean? To get all the nutrients in, to get all the things and whatever. So I think with everything we've talked about today, it all comes back down to like, again, I hate using the word balance, but like what that looks like for you. And that's why I try to tell my girls and stuff or whatever, and people who want to train with me and everything, is that like it has to be customizable to you. And that's why I would always get so frustrated with other coaches and stuff, because it made it seem like I was giving all this to my clients and trying to be there for them. Because I am them. I know what they're thinking. I know y'all like on Saturday night are like, oh, the alpha cookies. Like I know I'm you. I get it. I would love that too. But knowing that like I put myself and my health further than that, and like sometimes it's okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
But like, am I having it because the intentionality there is because I was upset or because some guy stood you up or because, you know what I mean? And not having unhealthy habits around it,
Yeah.
Like, am I just looking for validation, putting the story up? Like when I put my story up, like I put it up the other day about like me loving my booty because it looked great in these pants or whatever. That was for no man.
Right.
I wasn't like, oh, I secretly hope this guy's going to like come in my DMs and make me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, no, it wasn't that.
You probably hope the reverse.
It was, right. I was
Because
like,
they'll be coming in the DMs.
I just genuinely was like, oh my gosh, somebody told me it looks so good. Like, because
Right.
I just felt so good in that, and that should be celebrated. So it wasn't for anybody else.
Right.
And none of this should be for anybody else. And you with your photography, it's not for, whatever, or for, to prove yourself to anybody else. This is something that you say you're passionate about, your love for it. And that's what makes you different,
It is. And it makes you authentic
Yeah.
to what you're doing. And, one thing that a big thing that has really helped me throughout my journey, especially these last 5 years, being a single mom and being, a business owner and
Yeah.
all the things, starting all these new things, which you and I talked about. It's like purpose. It all goes back to purpose. If people can figure out what their purpose is,
Yeah.
then you can start taking intentions and actions moving towards that purpose. And that is where fulfillment lies, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I love that. So tell me a little bit about, just because, again, I know that listeners and people who watch have been seeing me go to church more often and everything like that, and I'm trying to be in the Word, which again, I'm not perfect, and I don't, as often as I would love to. But tell me, how do you kind of incorporate that in your day? You know what I mean? Because, you are hustling. So someone's listening to this, they're like, dang, like she's taking care of kids. She's, going to do all these different events. She's doing the podcast, all this, this boss babe mentality. Where does God come into that?
So I really believe that God, I'm not perfect either. Let me just preface that.
Yeah.
I really believe
100%.
that God is should be in all things. Like we can't
Right.
just take God to church on Sundays.
Right.
And, I'm really torn about church in general, to be honest with you. Like I have got to where now I don't attend church. And I know there's maybe some judgment around that, but it's, when I started to look around, and I struggle with this, so I'm not, people might not agree with me, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't even know that I agree with me.
Right.
But right now where I'm at, I struggle a little bit because I'm like, when I started seeing people in church, people outside of church acting more like Christians than people in the church, and that's not a definitive like black and white
Yes,
line.
100%.
I'm saying that's a generality
Yep.
that I had experience with in church. And then honestly, with my podcast, I talk to people who, these people are passionate and like they have their destiny, like this is their destiny to help people
Right.
overcome X type of trauma
Yeah.
or whatever type of trauma, or getting these different modalities into the hands of people that really need it. And it's
Right.
like when these people act more like the hands of God,
Yeah.
and then you have this group of people that can be very judgmental and
Right.
can be very like cliquish and it's just, I struggle with that.
Yeah.
I struggle with it. So for me, it's, hey, where can I incorporate God in all areas of my day?
Right.
Like I'm just, hey, God, I have this decision to make. Like, What do you think? And then I feel like the Holy Spirit speaks to me because scriptures will pop in my head. I'm driving in today into Nashville, and it's like, I'm listening to some worship music, and it's like, this just pops in my head.
Yeah.
Or I'll see, like, this morning I'm driving home from the gym, and the sun is starting to come up a little bit. You can still see the moon on this side, and it's like foggy, and it's just so beautiful. Like, this is one thing about Cookeville that is really, I do like. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's so pretty. And I just posted it and posted just a song basically saying I'm grateful for the day. And it's little things like that, seeing God in those places. Or like when I look in my daughter's eyes, seeing God in those places.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That's beautiful. And that's the thing too, is again, it's woven out throughout your day. You know what I mean? It's with you always. Same with that love for yourself. That same, with being healthy. It's all like the things that are important to you, and that is, and I think that is, I know that's why you've been blessed, and you've been able to get out of a traumatic situation. You've been able to push forward, have a better lens with things when others could have sat there and told you, oh yeah, be a victim, stay in that mindset. Like, you deserve that, and all of the negativity that comes with that. And so I love that. And I think that, again, with the whole church thing, like, I've had to go to multiple different churches to try to figure out where I want to go and things like that. I think it's just a feeling. 'Cause again, I don't go to church for anybody else. It really is just to serve myself. And so for me, it's like, I don't know the person next to me. And some people can be different about this with like, you need to be in a small group and whatever. And I would love to start doing that. Still trying to wrap my mind around making all the things work. But, it's genuinely like when I go, I feel better. Same thing with when I go to the gym, I feel better. When I'm around, people who at least have the intention, you think, right? Because I don't know, because the person next to me in the gym could be having their own issues, right? And going through stuff, which they probably are. Same thing within church, right? So it's like, again, when people are listening, I want them to remember that, like, we're not hating on like bodybuilding as it's the whole thing. It's just that the things that can come from it, just like with church, the things that can come from it when there's certain people that maybe either don't represent it in the best way, or with the coaches who coach poorly, and you know what I mean? And then, what's the word? Progress the health issues, it's stuff that's unnecessary, right?
Absolutely.
So it is that whole mindset of like, it's not an overarching, experience, but again, it's your relationship with it. And seeing is your relationship, not compared to anybody else, but being present with that. And I think that's where like we found that we have to, as entrepreneurs, sit with a lot of our, like, are you good with where you're at? Because versus being compared to like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And like living in that, because you're only going to be upset all the time if you do that.
Right.
So I love watching, like I said, how you've grown over the years, because again, I don't have a lot of female entrepreneur friends, when I really think about it. I know a lot of guys that are entrepreneurs. And they have their own struggles because they want to provide for their family in that way, right? And you're trying to provide for your family in your way, and you're trying to fill your cup up in so many things. So if you could tell yourself something, even 6 years ago when you were kind of going through everything, you're on this journey, like starting out with your, photography, what's something that you would have shared with yourself that you wish you would have known like now? You know what I mean? Or known then?
Man, I would have said purpose. Figure out what your purpose is. Like, stop watching television until you figure that out. Like, stop doing all the nonsense. This is what I would tell myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not judging people who watch television. I'm just saying, I would tell myself, Amber, stop doing all those things until you figure out what your purpose is, because you waste time.
Yeah.
Life is short. We only have so many years, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and so many minutes, so many hours in the day, and then so many years to live.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 44. Probably, I mean, I may have another 40 years, 50, maybe 60, maybe. But, that's not a lot of time.
Right.
In the scope of things. And it's like, I've got a lot to accomplish.
Yeah.
If I would have started this in my 20s, I wouldn't feel the urgency that I feel now. So if I had to tell myself something, or really anybody, like, figure out what that purpose is, because then you have something to work toward.
Right.
It's like you get in your car and you just drive around. You have no idea where you're going. Like, wherever you end up.
Right.
Versus
Exactly.
like if I know I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive to California, well, I know how many days it's going to take me.
Yeah.
I know like I'm going to have to stop and get like I can
Yes.
plan every little thing
Yeah.
versus, just flying by the seat of my pants.
I love that.
Figure it out.
So, and I did want to finish up on this. I want to ask you, just because, again, as you are single, like, have you been going on some dates? Like, how is that? Because I know it's another whole thing to balance in on, but like,
Yeah.
what is some, advice you could give to me? Because like, if you have any, but, because I'm very just adamant on somebody's going to come knock on the door,
Oh, girl,
like, manifesting that.
I'm at a weird place. I'm not even in a place where I care to date.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because that's the thing, though. It's like, how can you be so? Because I work with people like that, where they're so good with how everything is right now. It's just that like 10%, they're like, I wish that they were there for that. You know what I mean?
I do get, there are times where you get lonely. I'm like, man, I wish we had I wish I had somebody to go out to eat with or whatever.
Right.
But, I have a lot of friends and I have a lot of guy friends and girlfriends. And I'm like, I don't even have time for my friends.
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's like, how can I make time for a relationship right now? I'm busy.
Yeah.
I've got goals to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I've really committed to myself, like, okay, God, I'm giving my life to you.
Yeah.
Like, I am committing to doing my
That's awesome.
destiny, what it is you've called me to, you've put me here to do on this earth. I find fulfillment in that. If you choose to bring someone into my life
Yeah.
and say, Amber, here's a husband,
Yeah.
then I'll take them and be grateful and
Right.
be a very good wife, because I've reflected for 6 years on
Yes.
what makes a good wife. So I would, but I'm not looking for that.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly content without that. And it would have to be a very special person to be able to
Yes.
stand with me, because I have a very strong calling.
Yeah.
And I'm not, that will never be thwarted by any person.
I love that. I did want to say, because I always ask everybody at the end of the podcast, what is something that you love about your body?
You asked me this at the show the other night.
I did. I did a little interview.
Yeah, honestly, I have a love-hate relationship with my shoulders.
Yeah. Why is it a love-hate relationship? Your shoulders look great. The whole time you've been sitting here, I'm like, dang, she's stacked.
Okay, so from the angle you're looking at, I like them. But
What? What?
I know it sounds ridiculous, okay? But I have this defect. That's what I call it. It's like the way my muscles attach back here in the back part of my shoulder. It's like I have a space where there's no muscle there. And it's like a hole. So it's like, I don't know if you can see it.
No.
But like if I'm standing relaxed, it looks like I'm slouching.
Okay.
So I've noticed that like in photos and stuff. And I'm like, it's just really hard for me to, and even like when I'm working out in the gym, it's really hard for me to, I can't build, there's nothing to build. It's just an empty space back there. But I've had to come to the place where I'm like, I get a lot of compliments on my shoulders. I'm like, thank you. But there's this one defect that I have.
Yeah.
But that has taught me too, like I have a tendency to want to be a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not perfect.
Right.
And so
nobody expects you to be perfect. And the people who do are unrealistic and are nonsense anyway. But yeah, like it's, again, finding that love for that, all the parts of you. And it is a journey for sure. But I have been honored to get to watch your journey and watch you grow in that love for yourself. And that's been huge. And I thank you for keeping a safe space for all of my girls when you do our photography and our photo shoots, because that's been great too. And they show you the same respect as you show them, right? Because not stereotyping any type of bodies,
right?
And not assuming of any walks of life or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just simply like being kind, feeling good. We laugh, we have fun, and you've helped me with some very important photo shoots and things and moments where like I look back and I'm like, wow, I felt so powerful and so good. Or even when I wasn't feeling my best, you highlighted, not edit, didn't say edit, you know what I mean? But like you highlighted just amazing parts of it for me. So thank you for doing that. And I appreciate you so much. And there's going to be a lot of really positive things to come. So I'm excited to see all your stuff. And until next time.
Yeah. Thank you, Dani.